Unemployed and Afraid acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this episode on and of the land where you, the listener, are tuning in from. We would like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and extend our respect to any First Nations, Aboriginal, and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today, acknowledging that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the glorious mess of building your own business with the people doing it. I'm your host and fellow business builder, Kim Curtin. Thank you for being here. Let's get into some good, honest, small business chat. Hello, amazing business builder. If you are listening to this episode in real time of its release, happy end of financial year. How good is all this extra thinking and admin? Great times. As always, I hope you're taking some time to be in absolute awe of yourself for all that you do, because small business is bloody tough and often an emotional roller coaster. I know I'm in a bit of an up and down nonstop at the moment, swinging between self-doubt, then hope and excitement, then overwhelm, all the good things. If you feel this, you're in the right place. And interestingly, our guest today talks a bit about the magic in connecting and collaborating with other business owners for connection. And my DMs, of course, are always open if you need a little community, as I'm sure are many other business owners out there. And you can always join the Unemployed and Afraid Facebook group and drop your feels in there for a little advice or therapy or share some lols, whatever you need. Now let's all just take a deep breath and a moment to see just how far we've come. Today's chat really embraces change and the hashtag pivot we love so very much. The wonderful Yoko talks about the experience of immersing in a culture different to her own and how it changed her, about exploring her creativity across two different businesses and knowing when you need to move on from a path that was previously your everything and channel your creative energy into something new. We talk about trying to balance the passion of your business with family, managing the shift from in-person business to online, and so much more. Let's get into the chat. I'm chatting today with Yoko Inoue, master blender, macrobiotic and raw living food expert, chef and owner of Shoku Iku, a wellbeing emporium. Shoku Iku was started from Yoko's desire to create a holistic haven, which is now a place that takes you on a journey to understand the wonders of macrobiotic food, choice herbs, tonics, and supplements, and how these can help bring you to a place of well-being of your heart, mind, body, and soul, sharing consciously sourced high-functional botanicals and meal programs that are loved by tens of thousands. Steeped in tradition with a modern sensibility, Shoku Iku is a business that is a culmination of years of study and determination, plus a number of trials, tribulations, and pivots, because don't we just love a pivot that after 10 years has still only just begun. Yoko, we cannot wait to hear your story. Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid.
Thank you so much for having me. So excited to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. To start us off, I would love to know, how would your best friend describe you?
I wish I would say I'm a kind person, really passionate, creative, maybe a bit messy, disorganized, but creative. So that covers compassionate, all of those good things. That's what best friend is for.
That is exactly what a best friend is for. And I feel like a kindred spirit. I am also stuck between a desperate desire to be organized and a little bit of a creative mess as well. So I can understand. Tell me, before your incredible business, who were you?
I'll probably go back to where I'm originally from. I was born in Japan. I grew up in this small town called Matsuyama City in Shoku Island. I left home when I was 15. And when I say this to people, they think that I really hate my parents or something like that. But I do love my parents. But my mum was pretty unique. You know, she wanted me to be maybe quite different from what Japanese women are supposed to be, maybe. So she kind of gave me this opportunity to explore different way of living. And I moved to New Zealand when I was 15. Wow. Yeah, so I went by myself. So I stayed with host families in Auckland. But because I couldn't stay with one family for more than 1 year, there was some sort of regulation to that. So I had maybe 3 times. I had 3 host families during high school years. Yeah, so probably that was like probably one of the biggest things that, I have done. And then around maybe when I was 16, 17, I got really into makeup, like a beauty industry. I loved makeup. So I decided to be a makeup artist. I wanted to be the most, successful makeup artist. I'm pretty ambitious. So that was my aim, the most successful makeup artist in the world. And that was that was what I wanted to be.
Amazing. Why did you choose New Zealand?
Yeah, that's a funny, really random story, but like Japanese education is really tough. You are always studying and because there's so much commitment, I suppose. And I was upstairs studying on Sunday, I think. And I came downstairs, my parents are watching a documentary about, what is that race in Auckland? America's Cup. Yeah. And then I think I was looking at, like people by the ocean and they looked really free. And I was like, oh my God, I wish I was there. I wish I could just go there. And my mom was like, yeah, let's find out. So that was how we started. And she found this person who was from New Zealand, and he kind of helped me to, do the private overseas schooling. So yeah, that was pretty random. So that's why I think it's not really usual for especially Japanese people, especially at that age, to go overseas. And, coming from such a small town as well, like I didn't know anyone who went overseas. So that was my first time going overseas. All my classmates were Japanese. Everyone at the school was Japanese. All my neighbors are Japanese. I probably have seen like a handful of, foreign people walking in the city, like growing up the first 15 years. So there was a bit of shock, when I landed Auckland Airport and I looked up literally, because I'm pretty even small for Japanese woman. Everyone just like so tall and like so big. So, and I didn't really speak English then. So, and everyone was just speaking really fast. And it's like, I don't really understand. Yeah.
Wow, what an incredible experience. What an incredible mum you have. Just an incredible person to be like, yeah, go kid, go get the world. It would have been an incredibly transformative experience, not to mention learning another language at pace.
Yeah. And I think, 15, 16, you're quite sensitive. You're trying to like find yourself in the world where you are at. So it was really challenging for me, and just, being a minority, I suppose, in the West. And I did face a lot of discrimination, like direct to indirect. I still carry that, but it was the most expansive experience, and it, made me who I am now. So it's great.
Tell me a little bit about your makeup artistry journey.
So after high school, I went to a makeup school in Auckland. I think I was doing a bit of fashion, fashion week and things like that, a lot of weddings, special occasions. But then I met my daughter's father in Auckland. And after, I think, being together for 2 or 3 years, we decided to come to Melbourne. And I loved that idea because I wanted, more opportunities in Melbourne, much bigger than what was happening in Auckland. Yeah, so we moved here in 2000 together, and I did pretty well. I loved it. And it wasn't so much that I loved making people look pretty, like a standard pretty, but just the creativity. I think that's what I love the most. So usually photographers or creative directors, they are the ones that would hire a makeup artist. So I would do a cold call, and take my folio. And usually they want to work with you before they give you a job, do a little test kind of thing. And I loved those tests the most because you can be so creative and have so much fun. But I think everything kind of started to change when I started working with this photographer who was just so amazing. He was quite famous, really well known, and he was so skilled and like so creative, amazing photographer. And I thought, I made it, right? Like he does amazing, like really big campaigns and some really exciting times, but it was pretty toxic, like he loved alcohol, he loved parties, he loved drugs, he loved women. But because I think I was pretty naive, I was pretty young then, and there was no discussion about like Me Too movement and all that stuff too, I kind of got sucked in that world. And then I got pregnant when I was 23. And I probably didn't want to raise my child in that environment. I think I started losing interest in pursuing makeup artistry in that sort of environment. I probably just lost interest.
Yeah, I kind of see how that would have changed your perspective of the party environment, the party energy, all of a sudden bringing a small person into the world and whether or not that aligns.
Yeah. And I think when I got pregnant and I started getting into health and wellness and eating healthy food and stuff, and I'm like all or nothing kind of person. So I didn't really like care about makeup artistry anymore. Like I just loved everything about health and, like good food, organic sustainability, that sort of thing. It became really important to me. And God, I was so obsessed. And I still am. But yeah, that was kind of like my journey before what I'm doing now.
Yeah, it's nice to hear the all or nothing persona. I think I'm a little bit similar to you in that respect, but it's really refreshing as well to hear that a deep passion like what you had for makeup artistry, a purpose, something that you were working towards, just the confidence that you have to go, look, this was my dream and I feel like I've really enjoyed myself in it, but it's okay to move on to a new one. I think so many of us hold on to the personas of who we were, thinking that it's not a good reflection of ourselves if we shift that. And it can be just as simple as I've changed as a person. I'm interested in new things. So now it's time for me to explore something new. That's really interesting to hear.
Yeah. And also, I do still think that my creativity is still there because that was my thing about, doing makeup too. But I express my creativity in a different way, through food and through business. Like a business is a creative, thing. So it's just that like I haven't really changed as such. It's just more that the expression of myself is a bit different from what I used to do.
That's a wonderful way to put it. So tell me about the idea for your business, when it started to seed, when it started to grow, and where did you go from there?
So I got right into a philosophy called macrobiotic, and I studied for 1 year. And that was when I was, raising my child as well. And then I studied holistic nutrition, and that opened the door to the philosophy of tonic herbs, raw foods, living foods. So I think I was just doing more experimentation in my own kitchen, and I became plant-based as well. I think that kind of changed the dynamics of our family. My daughter's dad didn't really like that. So it was quite hard, even though I was just so passionate about, what I was doing, what I was learning. I couldn't really fully express what I wanted to be or like how I wanted to live. But I started doing a little bit of retail. So I would make the little truffles and like granola and, stuff like that. And I started taking them to the retailers to see if they want to, stock our products or my products. I didn't have anyone else in. So that's how I kind of started my business, and I started doing more blogging. And because I felt quite alone, because I didn't have anyone who were like doing or believing what I was doing. So I probably just wanted to create some sort of community and create a space that I can express myself, my creativity, and also my knowledge that I was learning. And then our relationship, I don't want to say fail. What do you say? We broke up, I suppose. It broke down.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the best things, I suppose. It was like, it gave me a permission to just go out in the world and do whatever I wanted to do. So I think after even like 6 months, I signed a lease to this place that I had a shop on High Street in Northgate. So yeah, that was 10 years ago.
Wow, what an incredible journey. I find the food industry particularly interesting because I think getting started in that space, it feels like there'd be a lot of scary hurdles to overcome, things like food safety and packaging and experiences like that. How did you go about learning everything you needed to learn to be able to get your products to a space where they're ready to go into a retailer?
I did a lot of online searching. I didn't really have a mentors or, anyone like that. So, and I think just from the experience of, being a makeup artist and having to do cold calls, like I would just ring up, like retail places and just ask what they need me to do, or
Right.
I would just ring up the council and see what I need to do to, start selling food and stuff like that. Like answers is there. Like you just have to look for it, and you have to be like, like we said, like we have to be obsessed, and it takes time, but yeah, it's all worth it. It's just having that commitment to find the answers to your questions.
Yeah, I love that. The beauty of a cold call, just, no one really cares if we pick up the phone and say, oh, I've got no idea what I'm doing. Can you help me out here? Are you the person I need to speak to? Do you know who I need to speak to? We just kind of need to let the ego drop a little bit in some of that. So brick and mortar, a lease. Wow. That's a big thing to take on.
Yeah, well, I was actually looking at this place for maybe 6 months because it was just a perfect place, because there was my favorite organic grocer just across the road from us. It's like, oh my God, this would be a really amazing place. And then I found out the price range that they were asking for, and it was just too much for me. So I was like, no, I can't. And then after 6 months, it was still empty. So I would just reach out to them and say, what's going on? And they're like, we just reduced the price, the rent. So I was like, oh, that must be the calling. Like we always look for that, like calling. So that's how I signed up. Like I didn't really have fear as such. I think experiences actually teach you that everything's just going to be okay. Like I've done some hard things, when I was young. And I think that will teach you that, okay, you can do this. Even if it doesn't work out, it's okay. Like at least you've tried. I think I've always kind of had that mindset since I was young. And when it's right, I do feel that you just know it's right. Everything kind of happens quite smoothly. Like that's when I know that I'm on the right path.
I could not relate to that anymore. Sometimes it's a very difficult thing to be able to quantify, but just that sense of, I feel safe enough to try this, knowing that there's no logical guarantee that it's going to be great, but just that this feels right, this feels easy, there's a flow here, things are happening, I'm not pushing hard against this. It's intuitively a part that maybe we don't put into business as much as we should. What is our intuition telling us? How does it feel to be able to do this? Are we forcing something that doesn't feel right? I think it's a very good point you raise.
Yeah, I think I've been seeing a lot of people talking about feminine energy and the masculine energy that's on the social and at the moment. And I think that we can apply that to the business as well. I think especially a man and woman, like it's not, we're not really talking about male or female, just more the energy that we, sometimes we have to push, but sometimes you just kind of let that universe guide you. And I think just a really beautiful way of running a business, having that feminine energy of receiving and just being guided.
Absolutely. So opening the doors to your store for the first time, tell me about what that was like and how your business looked at that stage.
Oh my gosh. I was so nervous. I thought no one would come, right? So because I was blogging for a little bit, I had a small group of people who were following my work. So they came to support and they shared on Facebook and, stuff like that. But yeah, I was just on my own. I would make everything. I would trade. I would clean up. I didn't even have a dishwasher. So I would just wash everything by hands end of the day. And then I will prepare for the next day. That was just like my 7 days. I was open for 6 days. And also I was a single mom too. So it was really hard, though, because I loved it. It wasn't hard for me, but it was hard for my daughter because she always had to be here with me. Mm-hmm. Even when she started going to school and stuff, I would always be late, picking her up from the school. So much juggling with family or for her and being a mom, being a good mom and having the business, keeping my passion. That was probably the hardest thing. And I still do feel a bit guilty that I couldn't be the mum that she kind of wanted. But, she's 19 now. I think she's forgiven me now, hopefully.
So having your brick and mortar store, your store where you invite people to come in and you serve them your beautiful food and your beautiful products and things are going so well in that space, what caused you to move away from that?
So COVID happened. So that was probably one of the biggest impacts that we had. And I tried to be open. So we did takeaway for a while. And even the COVID thing kind of calmed down. I only opened just takeaway. And I kept reopening the shop because community was really important to me and still is. It's, it's the biggest part of my why of, doing this business. So I missed people, I missed people coming to the shop and having a chat. And we create this amazing relationship where they will come and just tell me about their life and their kids. And that is really special. So I missed it. So even though maybe the business was not doing so well during COVID and after COVID, I just kept it open because I loved it. I just missed that connection with people. But now, a few months ago, I decided to close because it just wasn't adding up in the numbers. So I just had to close and find another way of doing my business.
Where did you get started on your next shift? What came first?
Well, I was always doing what I'm doing now, setting up herbal products and reset programs. But I just had to shift my mindset that is how I make money now. I have to focus on e-commerce. I have to focus on being online, which I had to really practice. And also selling, marketing. Because I think when you're running a cafe, people just come to you. Yeah, of course, we do post on Instagram about our food and stuff like that. But it's easier for people to find you. But online, you really have to push a little bit, market your business, selling yourself, which I found really, really uncomfortable. So it took me a while to kind of get to where I am. I'm still not 100% the best marketer in the world, but I just have that mental shift. That's what I'm focusing on, my products, my meal programs.
Did you have any help through that process? Any specialists or, like most of us do, did you go back to Dr. Google to help us with marketing and e-commerce strats and things like that? How did you approach it?
I did a few programs, a business programs. And also I had a business coach who was kind of helping me for a little bit for 6 months or so. And I do have a lot of friends who are in the same kind of industry. It could be a beauty skincare or sustainable skincare, food, e-commerce, and some marketing people. So I did a lot of co-working together and just going for a walk and discussing our dreams and visions, and they would help me. And because I think practical side, I could just hire people, but being motivated and just shifting that mindset is the biggest thing for me. And because running a cafe was my comfort zone, creating food in the kitchen, it's physically hard, but it was my comfort, my love place. So just changing that mindset, I just had to talk to people who are doing what I'm doing now.
Such good advice. How are you feeling now about selling yourself and how do you go about it?
I still go phases, maybe 1 week I'm so pumped and I'm sending emails to people. But then the rest of the 3 weeks, I'm I just don't want to. And I'm such an introvert. I'm an introvert who loves people. So even just reaching out to people, just talking to people takes a lot out of me. So I need to have a bit of rest. So probably too much information, but I usually reach out to people around ovulation time. That's the time.
Yes, I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I just feel a bit more confident maybe, and I feel a bit more lively. And then towards the end of the cycle, I'm don't talk to me.
I couldn't relate to this anymore. And I think for those men who are listening, I know you won't understand this, but for the women who are listening, yes, we have peaks and troughs in terms of what it's best to work on at different times. The whole industrial focus of daily 9 to 5, the same sort of energy every day. doesn't necessarily work. We can get so much more done in that 1 week of, ovulation period when our energy is high, our motivation is high, our confidence is high. We can do the quantity of work of 4 weeks in that 1 week. But then the next week needs to be the quantity of work on admin or, like if you're a content creator and editing and things like that. That's a really hard thing to figure out because we get taught so much about daily schedules and, what we should do across a day and even, schedules that run across, a given week. You should do this on a Monday, do this on Tuesday. Just doesn't always work that way. I can't possibly show up effectively for a podcast interview if I am feeling rubbish. It's just how it is,
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's the beauty of running your own business though, because you can kind of like make your own rule. And it would be amazing if everyone knows, the whole corporation knows our cycles, but it's just too hard, right? So running your own business, even though, it's hard, but like you can just make your own rule. It's great.
Absolutely. You talked a little bit earlier in our chat about your blog community and bringing people on there. You have quite a nice community as well on some of the other networks. How do you go about building that?
When I first started, when I was writing a blog, I didn't think anyone is reading anyway. So I would just be really truthful. I would just share all my struggles and emotional ups and downs. And I think people kind of resonated with that. But I think once I opened the cafe, it was much easier because I could actually see people in person, right? But then I'm not just like a normal cafe. Like I'm pretty niche, I do raw, organic, vegan food with tonic herbs. Like the people who are usually in this kind of community, they are even a bit more open and they are my people. Like we bond with feminine and masculine energy or like, we bond over health and when it's related to health, because, when people eat this way, some of them have gone through a bit of like medical issues or, disorders or, things like that. So they've done a lot of body, physical and spiritual journey to get to where they are. So they're much open and they're more curious to know and be educated. I mean, I love my customers. I love my clients because of that. We relate a lot. Yeah, and we go quite deep, which is just so amazing. I'm just so grateful.
What do you wish you knew at the beginning of your business journey that you know now?
That you understand your strengths and weaknesses. And I know there are some people who say, just focus on your strengths and maybe hire someone for, for your weaknesses. And I do agree with that a little bit, but then you can't really ignore that weaknesses. Like I'm so bad with numbers. I hate accounting and I hate numbers. I don't even know what I'm like, but you have to learn. You have to make an effort to learn and be better with the weaknesses. And once you get big enough or you start making a little bit more money, then you can hire someone. But I think you still have to understand where the money is coming from. Your weakness, you can't just ignore and just put them away. But I think that was my mistake. I was always creative, doing the projects and making food, and that was what I loved. But because I ignored that financial side for so long, then like a business had to shift, which is fine. Like we learn at different pace, but you have to have that willingness to learn and strengthen your weaknesses as much as you can anyway.
Yeah, that's so true. I really struggle a lot with systemizing processes. That's one area that I know I need to be more focused on. And I glaze over. As soon as someone says, let's put that into a schedule of how we'll get from this to this to this, I just glaze over and go, whatever, I'll just do it. Like it'll just happen. Like put a due date on things. Nah. So yes, I totally understand. It's not so good when you're creating content. On the other side, I mean, you have so much knowledge in this space. It'd be remiss of me not to ask you this question. What's one thing you wish more people knew about their own health and their own health journey?
That not just one thing will fix you. I think the holistic health concept is really important because you can't just focus on just food. You can't just focus on exercise. You do have to do all of it to gain that holistic wellness. And also, don't just believe in what one person says. I think you have to explore yourself. You have to know yourself. You have to know your tendency, you have to know your body personality, like all of that to understand what works for you the best. Like I eat plant-based and mostly raw. It works for me amazingly. I love how I eat. But not everyone can do this all the time, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or some people might have to supplement with, different things. Like our body is different, our lifestyle is different, our age is different, our body is changing all the time. So you have to constantly check in to see is this working for me? And that's one of the macrobiotic teaching as well, like energy of food. Maybe I'm just going too deep on that. Yeah, maybe that's not too.
I think, I don't know if we can go deep enough in that area. I think it's really interesting because it sounds as though your focus on holistic wellness and holistic health plays a bit of a part in how you look at business too. It's not one thing that's going to do it. It's not just focusing on your strengths that's going to get you there. It's also looking at everything across the board. It sounds like that's played a bit of a part in your business. Is it something that you intended to do, or is it something you think will continue?
Well, I think that's like basic teaching of macrobiotic, like we have this energy of yin and yang, but like what we're trying to do. And that's like a part of Zen Buddhist teaching as well, that you want to be as neutral as possible, right? So that applies to foods, that applies to your emotions, that applies to I suppose everything that you do in life. So that's how I like to live my life.
That's so interesting. God, so many of us, myself included, do the peaks and troughs, don't we? Just like high energy, high stress, drop, just the up and the down. But yeah, that more neutral, just consistency and, traveling along a neutral path is a very important point.
Yeah, I mean, emotions are fun. Like I love, being happy, and I love, feeling the joy. And like when you're down too, that's when you discover yourself, right? Like when you're uncomfortable, and that's how you learn and how you grow. So you don't want to just be like neutral. That's kind of like boring life for me anyway. But then I think when you are really high, then you know that low is coming. And you know what to do to kind of make it into a more neutral space. Like, I don't think we can be perfect and, say I'm always neutral and it's not fun, but I think we just need to understand like how we can balance, I suppose, our physical and emotional self.
Where do you see your business heading to over the next little while?
I am excited. So at the moment, everything, like all our products are online, so it can be purchased anywhere in Australia. But our meal programs, we do Sydney and we do Melbourne. So our aim is by at least end of this year, I would like to do all the states in Australia. That's our aim. And because I don't have the cafe anymore, I love connecting with people. I love collaborating. So I would love to do more of that. But it's just me reaching out. So I'd love to collaborate with other businesses and just people in general who are doing amazing things. Because I always say health is not a destiny. Like being the healthiest person in this world is not our aim. You have to have the health to do what you need to do on this earth. You have to live on purpose. So I meet so many amazing people who are doing some amazing stuff like yourself. And I love that. I love being part of that.
I love that. You seem to have a real confidence in reaching out to people and looking for collaboration opportunities, which I think is something that we can all learn from. Is there is no harm in just asking the question to somebody or a business that you admire or that you're interested in to say, hey, is there a way that we could collaborate together? Perhaps not necessarily coming even with an idea. It could just be, maybe there's something that we can do together. Has that always been your approach? Just kind of reach out and get in there?
Yeah, it's not just for like a business opportunities, but I love getting to know people and I love their stories and stuff like that. And that inspires me, that motivates me too. So there's no agenda as much, really. I just want to reach out and say, just tell them that I love what you do. And is there something that we could do together? But if not the case, then it's okay too. At least I reached out to you and just told you that I love what you do.
I love that. It's a very good message for people to take away. Who can you reach out to and see what sort of connections you can make? How can the listener and I support you as your business evolves over its next stages?
Thank you for asking me that. Just maybe reach out to me. I would love to start a chat if you are into collaboration or working together. I don't really know.
We can definitely follow you on your journey. And so I'll make sure to put the links to your website for your programs, your products, and also your Instagram in the show notes so that the listener can go check out everything that you do, everything that you're offering, and perhaps take a little bit of a vested interest in health and how we can all live feeling a little bit better and do all of this hard stuff that we do in business, having the vessels to push us through. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you today, Yoko. Thank you for sharing your story with me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
One quick thing, if you're hearing this, you've listened all the way through. Hopefully that means you really like this podcast because it's pretty generous to give up 40 odd minutes of your time for it. If that is the case, please leave the show a star rating and a review. It helps me reach so many more people who might also listen all the way through and get some benefit and some support out of it. Not to mention, it puts a real spring in my step to read them. Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the podcast for small business builders with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you love it, you can say thanks with a star rating and a review. And of course, join the community on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Find us at Unemployed and Afraid wherever you're hanging out, and I'll see you there.